Part 1. The Exile's Gambit. The metal chains around Commander Marcus Chen's wrists felt cold against his skin as he stood before the massive circular chamber of the Galactic Council. Hundreds of alien eyes stared down at him from the towering seats that rose like stadium bleachers around the courtroom floor. Some eyes were large and black like those of the insect-like Corvan delegates. Others glowed with inner fire like the crystalline Zilithians who controlled most of the galaxy's trade routes. Marcus kept his back straight and his chin up. He had been a soldier for 20 years. He would not show fear now, even facing the most powerful court in known space. Human Marcus Chen, the voice boomed from the central podium where High Arbiter Zelkareth sat. The Zilithian's crystal body sparkled with angry red light. You stand accused of violating the preservation protocols. How do you answer? Marcus looked up at the towering alien judge. I saved lives. If that's a crime in your book, then I'm guilty. A wave of angry chittering and electronic buzzing filled the chamber. The translator implant in Marcus's ear turned it into words like arrogant and typical human chaos and dangerous thinking. The facts were simple enough. Marcus had been captain of the colony ship New Frontier when they received a distress call from the planet Cathera 7. The planet was under quarantine by council order because of some kind of plague. The council's rule was clear. No one goes in, no one comes out. Let the disease burn itself out. But Marcus had intercepted personal messages from the planet. Children crying for help. Families trapped in burning cities. The plague was not killing everyone. It was making them different somehow. The council was willing to let millions die rather than risk the unknown. So Marcus had broken the quarantine. His crew had rescued 50,000 refugees before council ships arrived and forced them to retreat. The defendant will explain his reasoning, High Arbiter Zelkareth commanded. Marcus stepped forward. Your Honor, the preservation protocols were created to protect the galaxy from genuine threats. But these people weren't dangerous. They were scared, hungry, and dying. My crew ran detailed scans. The plague wasn't even contagious anymore. It had evolved into something harmless. Harmless. The voice came from Inquisitor Vex 9, the mechanical Corvan who served as prosecutor. His robotic body was sleek black metal with glowing red sensors. The infected showed abnormal brain activity, increased psychic potential, resistance to standard mental conditioning. These are the markers of a chaos species. Marcus felt anger rising in his chest. They were becoming telepathic. Since when is evolution a crime? Since chaos species destabilize galactic order, Vex 9 replied coldly. The preservation protocols exist to maintain peace and stability. Humans already push the boundaries of acceptable behavior. Your species' tendency toward unpredictable action makes you a borderline case yourselves. The courtroom fell silent. Marcus realized what was really happening here. This wasn't about the quarantine violation. This was about humanity itself. High Arbiter Zelkareth's crystal body pulsed with cold blue light. Commander Chen, the Council has reviewed humanity's file extensively. In the 300 years since first contact, humans have violated 47 Council regulations. You start wars, ignore established trade routes, colonize worlds without proper permits, and consistently refuse to accept your designated role in galactic civilization. Our designated role? Marcus asked. Manual laborers, low-level technicians. Your species lacks the mental discipline for higher functions, Vex 9 stated. Yet you persist in attempting leadership roles, scientific research, and military command. This rescue mission is simply the latest example of human chaos threatening galactic stability. Marcus looked around the chamber. He saw the truth now in those alien eyes. Fear. They were afraid of humanity. Not because humans were violent or stupid, but because humans refused to stay in their place. The defendant has been found guilty of violating preservation protocols and contributing to chaos species development, High Arbiter Zelkareth announced. The sentence is exile to Zerion Prime. Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. Everyone knew about Zerion Prime. It was a desert world on the galaxy's edge where the Council sent political prisoners and other undesirables. The average survival time was 72 hours. The record was 6 days. Your Honor, Marcus began, but Vex 9 cut him off. The sentence will be carried out immediately. Perhaps your death will serve as a lesson to other humans about the cost of defying galactic order. 2 massive Corvan guards stepped forward to escort Marcus away. Their mechanical hands clamped onto his arms with crushing force. As they dragged him toward the exit, Marcus caught sight of something that made his heart race. In the observation gallery, half hidden behind a pillar, stood Captain Sarah Rivera from the New Frontier. She had somehow made it to the Council station. Their eyes met for just a moment, and she gave him the tiniest nod. His crew was still out there. They had not abandoned him. 6 hours later, Marcus sat strapped into a one-person exile pod, hurtling through hyperspace toward Zerion Prime. The pod was basic, just life support, emergency rations for 3 days, and a basic survival kit. The Sapos Council clearly expected exiles to die quickly. Marcus used the travel time to think. The trial had revealed something important about galactic politics. The Council wasn't just maintaining order, they were actively suppressing any species that showed too much independence or creativity. Humans were on that list, along with who knows how many other races. The pod's computer announced they were dropping out of hyperspace. Through the small viewport, Marcus saw Zerion Prime approaching. The planet looked like a ball of red sand and black rock. No visible water, no green vegetation, just endless desert under the harsh light of twin suns. The pod shook violently as it hit the atmosphere. Marcus gripped his restraints and watched the altimeter spin downward. At the last second, emergency thrusters fired to slow his descent, but the landing was still brutal. The pod bounced twice across the sand dunes before coming to rest against a black rock formation. Marcus waited until the metal hull cooled, then popped the hatch. The heat hit him like a physical blow. The air was dry and thin, making each breath feel like swallowing fire. The twin suns blazed overhead in a sky the color of old blood. He grabbed his survival kit and stepped out onto the sand. The pod's emergency beacon was already transmitting, letting the Council know he had arrived at his place of execution. They would monitor the signal until it stopped, which would tell them when he died. Marcus looked around at the endless dunes. Most people would see only death here, but Marcus had been trained as a military engineer. Where others saw problems, he saw solutions. The pod's hull was made of advanced alloys that could reflect heat. The power cells could run basic equipment, for weeks if used carefully. The emergency rations could be stretched if supplemented with local resources. First priority was shelter. Marcus began dismantling parts of the pod's outer hull, using his survival kit's tools to create reflective panels. Within 2 hours, he had built a basic shelter in the shadow of the rock formation. The panels reflected the worst of the heat while creating shade underneath. Next was water. The survival kit included a small atmospheric processor that could extract moisture from the air. It wasn't much, maybe half a liter per day, but combined with careful rationing of his emergency water supply, it might be enough. As the twin suns began to set, painting the desert in shades of orange and purple, Marcus allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. He had survived his first day on the death world, but he knew the real challenges were just beginning. He was settling down for the night when something caught his eye. There, in the sand near his shelter, were footprints. They were definitely not human, too large, with an unusual toe configuration, but they were also clearly not random animal tracks. They showed purposeful movement, intelligence. Marcus knelt down for a closer look. The prints were recent, made within the last few hours based on how the sand had settled. And they led away from his crash site toward a cluster of strange rock formations in the distance. Something else was out there in the desert, something that knew he had arrived. Marcus checked his energy weapon and emergency beacon. The weapon had enough charge for maybe 20 shots. The beacon was still transmitting steadily, telling the council he was alive. He looked toward the horizon where the footprints led. Those rocks in the distance seemed to shimmer in the fading light, almost like they were moving, or like there was something hidden among them that his eyes couldn't quite make out. Tomorrow, he would follow those tracks. Tonight, he would rest and prepare. The council had sent him here to die, but Marcus Chen had never been good at doing what he was told. As the desert night fell and strange sounds echoed across the dunes, Marcus settled into his improvised shelter. Somewhere out there in the darkness, something was waiting for him. Whether it meant death or salvation, he would find out soon enough. The exile's first day was over. His real adventure was about to begin. Part 2. The desert's secret Marcus woke before dawn to the sound of wind howling across the desert. The twin suns were just starting to rise, turning the red sand dunes into waves of gold and orange. He had slept fitfully, his dreams filled with strange whispers and half-glimpsed shadows moving outside his shelter. He checked his water supply first. The atmospheric processor had collected almost a full liter during the night, better than expected. The desert air was drier during the day but held more moisture in the cool darkness. That was useful information for survival. After a careful breakfast of half a ration bar and a few sips of water, Marcus gathered his equipment. His energy weapon was fully charged. His scanner showed no immediate threats within a kilometer radius. The mysterious footprints from yesterday were still visible in the sand, leading toward those strange rock formations in the distance. Marcus began following the trail. The prints were definitely made by something bipedal and intelligent. They showed a careful walking pattern, avoiding the softest sand where feet would sink deep. Whatever made them understood this terrain. As he walked, Marcus noticed other details. Small piles of stones arranged in patterns that seemed too organized to be natural, scratches on certain rocks that might be symbols or markers. Someone, or something, had been using this area for a long time. The trail led him across 3 miles of rolling dunes before reaching the rock formations he had seen from his crash site. Up close, they were even stranger than they had appeared from a distance. The rocks were black volcanic glass, but they had been carved into impossible spiraling shapes. They looked almost like frozen water, as if the desert had once been an ocean and these were waves turned to stone. The footprints disappeared at the base of the largest formation. Marcus circled the structure twice, but found no trace of where the trail continued. It was as if whoever made the prints had simply vanished into solid rock. Marcus pulled out his scanner and ran a detailed sweep of the area. The readings were confusing. The rocks showed hollow spaces inside them, like caves or tunnels. But there was no visible entrance anywhere. He pressed his hands against the smooth black surface of the rock. It felt warm, almost alive. There was a faint vibration running through it, like the hum of hidden machinery. "Hello?" Marcus called out, feeling somewhat foolish. "Is anyone there?" The only answer was the whisper of wind across sand. Marcus spent 2 hours searching the area before he found it. Hidden behind a smaller rock formation, almost invisible unless you were looking from exactly the right angle, was a crack in the stone just wide enough for a person to squeeze through. The crack led downward into darkness. Marcus activated his emergency light and peered inside. The passage was smooth and clearly artificial, carved by tools rather than natural erosion. Cool air flowed up from the depths, carrying strange scents, flowers and running water and something else he couldn't identify. Marcus hesitated. Going underground alone was dangerous. But the alternative was returning to his shelter to slowly die of thirst and exposure. The council was probably already planning his memorial service. He squeezed through the crack and began descending. The passage spiraled downward for what felt like miles. Marcus's light revealed walls covered in carved symbols that seemed to shift and dance in the moving shadows. The air grew cooler and more humid with each step. The scent of water became stronger. Finally, the passage opened into a vast cavern filled with impossible beauty. The underground space was enormous, stretching away into darkness beyond the reach of his light. But what he could see took his breath away. Gardens of luminescent plants covered the cavern floor, their soft blue and purple light creating an otherworldly landscape. Streams of clear water ran between the garden beds, feeding pools that reflected the glowing vegetation like liquid mirrors. And moving among the gardens were the most beautiful beings Marcus had ever seen. They were clearly female in form, tall, and graceful with pale skin that seemed to glow with its own inner light. Their hair was long and white, but not the white of age. It gleamed like spun silver and moved as if floating underwater. When they turned to look at him, their eyes were large and completely black, like pools of liquid night. For a long moment, nobody moved. The alien women stared at Marcus in what was clearly shock and alarm. He stared back, hardly believing what he was seeing. According to every galactic database, Xerion Prime was uninhabited. Yet here was an entire civilization hidden beneath the desert. One of the beings stepped forward. She was taller than the others and wore what looked like living clothing, fabric, that shifted color and pattern as she moved. When she spoke, her voice was like music, but Marcus's translator implant struggled to make sense of the words. "Impossible," the translation came through in choppy fragments. "Male, surface dweller. How did you... The barriers should have..." Marcus raised his hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "I'm sorry for intruding. I crash-landed on the surface yesterday. I was following footprints and found the entrance to your... city?" The lead female exchanged rapid words with the others in their musical language. Marcus caught fragments through his translator, words like surface death, council watchers, and great hiding. Finally, the leader turned back to him. "I am Lyrale, guardian of the Nethys refuge. You claim to be from the surface, yet you live. This should not be possible. I'm pretty good at surviving impossible situations," Marcus said. "It's kind of a human thing." "Human?" Lyrale's black eyes widened. "You are one of the Chaos Bringers? The Council speaks of your kind as dangerous primitives." Marcus felt a familiar anger at the Council's lies. "The Council says a lot of things. Most of them aren't true. What are you? I thought this planet was empty." Lyrale was quiet for a long moment. Then she gestured for him to follow her deeper into the cavern city. As they walked along paths between the glowing gardens, she spoke. "We are Scifi. Once we lived among the stars like other races. We had colonies on a dozen worlds and traded with species across the galaxy. But our people were different. We could touch minds with thought alone. We could grow living machines instead of building dead metal ones. We could heal wounds with our hands and see futures that had not yet come to pass." They passed other Scifi working in the gardens or tending to complex biomechanical devices that seemed part plant and part machine. All of them stopped to stare at Marcus with curiosity and wariness. "The Council declared us too dangerous to exist freely," Lyrale continued. "They said our psychic abilities made us a threat to galactic stability. Our biotechnology was unnatural. Corruption of proper science. They gave us a choice: submit to mental conditioning that would strip away our gifts or face extinction." Marcus felt his blood boiling. "So you chose to hide." "We chose to survive," Lyrale corrected. "For 500 years we have lived in hidden cities like this one. The galaxy believes we are extinct. It is safer that way." They reached the center of the cavern, where a magnificent structure rose from the living rock. It looked like a palace, made of crystal and grown wood, with walls that pulsed gently with bioluminescent patterns. Water flowed down its sides in intricate cascades, feeding the streams that nourished the gardens. "But now you are here," Lirali said, turning to face him. "A human male on our world of exile. This cannot be coincidence." Marcus told her about his trial, his crime of rescuing plague victims, and his sentence to die on Zirian Prime. As he spoke, he watched emotions play across Liralay's face: surprise, anger, and something that might have been recognition. "The council sent you here to die," she said when he finished, "just as they sent us. But you did not die. You adapted. You found water and shelter and life where they said only death could exist." "That's what humans do," Marcus said. "We're stubborn that way." Liralay smiled for the first time since he had met her. It was like sunrise breaking over the desert. "Perhaps that is why they fear you." "Come, Marcus Chen. There are things you must see. Things that will help you understand why this world is not just a place of exile." She led him toward the crystal palace. As they walked, Marcus noticed more Scifi emerging from hidden paths and dwelling places. Word of his presence was spreading quickly through their underground city. "How many of you are there?" he asked. "In this city? Nearly 10,000. Across the galaxy, hidden on worlds like this one, perhaps 1,000,000. We are not extinct, despite what the Council believes. We endure." They reached the entrance to the palace. Liralai paused with her hand on the living door, which began to glow brighter at her touch. "Marcus Chen," she said seriously, "what I am about to show you will change everything you believe about this planet and the council that sent you here. Once you know the truth, there will be no going back. Are you prepared for that?" Marcus thought about the council's lies, the thousands of refugees he had saved, and the impossible beauty of this hidden city. "I've been preparing for the truth my whole life." Liralay opened the door, and together they stepped into the heart of Scifi secrets. Behind them, in the glowing gardens, the other Scifi women whispered among themselves in their musical language. For the first time in 5 centuries, a male had walked among them, and not just any male, but a human. One of the chaos bringers who refused to accept the limits others placed on them. Part 3. Bonds Forged. In Fire Inside the Crystal Palace, Marcus felt like he had stepped into a living dream. The walls pulsed with soft bioluminescent patterns that seemed to respond to his presence. Water flowed through channels carved into the floor, creating a gentle music that echoed through the halls. Everything was organic curves and flowing lines, as if the entire structure had been grown rather than built. Liralai led him to a circular chamber at the heart of the palace. The walls were covered with what looked like star charts, but they moved and changed as Marcus watched. Some showed familiar constellations, while others displayed worlds he had never seen before. "This is the memory chamber," Liralay explained. "Here we keep the history of our people and watch the galaxy beyond our hiding places." She touched one of the wall panels, and the star charts faded. In their place, images began to appear. Scenes from Scifi history. Marcus saw their original homeworld, a place of floating cities and bioships that looked like living creatures. He saw the first contact with other galactic species, trade agreements, and peaceful cooperation. Then the images turned darker. Council fleets surrounding Scifi worlds, cities burning, refugees fleeing in whatever ships they could find. The Council called it the Purification War, Liralai said, her voice heavy with old pain. They said we were a disease that would corrupt galactic civilization. In reality, they were afraid of us. Our biotechnology was advancing faster than their mechanical sciences. Our psychic abilities let us communicate across vast distances without their controlled networks. we were becoming independent of their systems. Marcus watched scenes of Sci-Fi resistance fighters using bioweapons that could disable entire council ships without killing the crews. You could have fought back. These weapons were designed to incapacitate, not kill, Lyrelei finished. We are not a warrior people, Marcus Chen. We believe life is sacred. That mercy was our weakness. The council showed no such restraint. The final images showed the last Sci-Fi ships escaping into deep space, carrying the survivors to hidden worlds like Xerion Prime. The galaxy's records were altered to show the Sci-Fi as extinct. But you survived, Marcus said. You built all this. We survived, but we are dying, Lyrelei replied sadly. She touched another panel, and the images changed to show the current state of their hidden cities. Our biotechnology requires rare minerals from deep within planets. Without access to proper mining equipment, we cannot maintain our systems. Each year, our population grows smaller. Our children are born weaker. In perhaps 2 centuries, the Sci-Fi will truly be extinct. Marcus studied the mineral analysis data displayed on the walls. His engineering training kicked in automatically. These compounds, they're not that rare. The problem is accessing them. You'd need to drill down about 5 kilometers through solid rock. But with the right equipment we do not possess, Lyrelei said. Our biomachines are powerful, but they cannot survive the heat and pressure of deep drilling. We have tried for centuries to solve this problem. What if you combined your biotechnology with mechanical engineering? Marcus asked, his mind racing. Biomechanical hybrid systems. Use your living machines to regulate temperature and adapt to changing conditions, but with mechanical components that can handle the heavy work. Lyrelei stared at him. Such a thing. We have never considered mixing our pure biotechnology with dead metal machines. That's because you're thinking like Sci-Fi, Marcus said with a grin. I'm thinking like a human. We specialize in doing things that shouldn't be possible. Over the following days, Marcus worked with Sci-Fi scientists to develop his hybrid drilling concept. He was introduced to Zara, a young researcher whose curiosity about human engineering reminded him of his own daughter back on Earth. There was also Kithara, a warrior poet who had once fought in the resistance against the Council and now served as chief of security for Nethys. Your mind works so strangely, Zara observed as they worked on biomechanical designs in her laboratory. When we see a problem, we look for harmony and natural solutions. You see the same problem and immediately think of ways to break it apart and rebuild it differently. Humans are good at breaking things, Marcus admitted, but we're also good at putting them back together in new ways. The breakthrough came when Marcus suggested using Sci-Fi biometal, living tissue that could harden into something stronger than steel when needed, as a protective coating for traditional drilling equipment. The biometal would adapt to extreme conditions while the mechanical parts provided the raw power needed for deep excavation. This could work, Kithara said, examining their designs. But creating the equipment will require resources we do not have. We would need metals and power sources from the surface world. Then we go to the surface, Marcus said. My crash pod has everything we need to start building a prototype. Lyrelei looked worried. The surface is monitored by Council satellites. If they detect unusual activity, let me worry about that, Marcus replied. I've been dodging Council surveillance my whole career. They spent 3 weeks building their hybrid drilling system. Marcus worked alongside Sci-Fi engineers, amazed by their ability to literally grow machine components from specially modified biomatter. In return, the Sci-Fi were fascinated by human techniques for improvising solutions with limited resources. You make it look so easy, Zara commented, as Marcus jury-rigged a power coupling using parts from 3 different systems, taking random pieces and making them work together. It's not easy, Marcus said. It's just necessary. Humans learned a long time ago that perfect solutions are rare. Usually, you have to make do with whatever you have and somehow make it work. As he worked, Marcus found himself drawn to Lorelei. She would often visit the construction site, watching him work with an expression of fascination and something deeper. Their conversations ranged from technical discussions to sharing stories about their respective cultures. "Your people sound remarkable," Lorelei said one evening as they sat by one of the underground streams. "To face so much opposition from the council and still maintain your independence." "We're stubborn," Marcus replied. "Maybe too stubborn for our own good sometimes, but we figure it's better to die free than live as slaves." "The Sci-Fi chose differently," Lorelei said quietly. "We chose survival over freedom. Sometimes I wonder if we made the right choice." Marcus looked at the incredible city around them, at the beautiful gardens and the flowing water and the gentle light of the bioluminescent walls. "You survived. That's not nothing. And now maybe we can find a way to do both, survive and be free." Their first test drill was scheduled for dawn. The hybrid system would attempt to penetrate just 1 kilometer into the planet's crust, a proof of concept before trying for the deeper mineral deposits they really needed. Marcus was making final adjustments to the equipment when Kythera came running into the work area, her face pale with alarm. "Ships," she said breathlessly. "Council ships in orbit, 3 vessels heavily armed. They are scanning the planet's surface." Marcus felt ice in his stomach. "How long before they detect the drill site?" "Unknown. Our camouflage systems can hide the city, but not large-scale mining operations on the surface." Marcus ran to the communications center where other Sci-Fi were monitoring the council fleet. The displays showed 3 massive warships in orbit around Zerion Prime. Their energy signatures indicated they were running intensive scans of the planetary surface. "This is Inquisitor Vex 9 to orbital control," a cold mechanical voice came through the speakers. "Beginning standard exile follow-up procedures, scanning for life signs of condemned prisoner Marcus Chen." Marcus's blood turned to ice. His emergency beacon had stopped transmitting days ago when the power ran out. The council was here to confirm he was dead. "They will scan the entire planet," Lorelei said, her voice tight with worry. "If they discover our city—" "They won't," Marcus said, firmly, "because I'm going to give them what they're looking for." He began gathering his equipment. "I need to get back to my crash site. Let them find me alive and well. If they think I'm just a stubborn human who managed to survive a few weeks in the desert, they'll leave." "And if they don't believe you?" Kythera asked. "Then we deal with that when it happens," Marcus replied. "But I won't let them find your people because of me." Lorelei grabbed his arm. "Marcus, you cannot face them alone. They came here to confirm your death. If you are still alive—" "They'll finish the job," Marcus completed. "Yeah, I know. But it's better than letting them discover Nethys." He looked around at the faces of the Sci-Fi who had become his friends and colleagues over the past weeks. These people had shown him wonders beyond imagination. They had trusted him with their greatest secrets. Now it was his turn to protect them. "Keep working on the drilling project," he told them. "When I get back, we're going to dig so deep we'll hit the planet's core if we have to." Marcus made his way back to the surface through the hidden passages, his heart pounding with each step. Above him, council ships were waiting. Behind him, an entire civilization depended on his ability to convince the galaxy's most ruthless enforcers that he was just a lucky human who had managed to avoid death a little longer than expected. The real test was about to begin. Part 4. The human element. Marcus reached his original crash site just as the council ships began their descent from orbit. He quickly scattered some of his salvaged equipment around the pod to make it look like he had been living there the whole time. The bioluminescent water purifier that Zara had given him went into his pack. Evidence of Sci-Fi technology could not be found. The first ship landed in a storm of sand and engine fire. It was sleek and black, built for intimidation rather than comfort. The hatch opened with a mechanical hiss, and Inquisitor Vex 9 stepped out, followed by a squad of Corvan security troops. Vex 9's robotic body gleamed in the harsh sunlight of the twin suns. His red sensor eyes swept the crash site, analyzing everything. "Prisoner Marcus Chen," his artificial voice echoed across the desert. "You were expected to be dead." Marcus stood up from his shelter, making sure to look appropriately tired and desperate. "Sorry to disappoint you. I'm harder to kill than you thought." "Indeed." Vex 9 approached slowly, his sensors scanning Marcus from head to toe. 23 days of survival on a Class 5 death world. Most impressive for a primitive human. "I had good teachers," Marcus replied. "Military survival training covers a lot of scenarios." Vex 9 stopped 3 meters away. Behind him, the Corvan troops kept their energy weapons ready. "Show me how. You survived." For the next hour, Marcus demonstrated his jury-rigged water collection system, his reflective shelter panels, and his carefully rationed food supplies. He made it look like desperate improvisation rather than the sophisticated setup he had actually created with Sci-Fi help. "Adequate," Vex 9 finally said, "but your survival raises questions. This planet has been used for exile purposes for over 2 centuries. Previous subjects have never lasted more than 6 days. What makes you different?" Marcus shrugged. "I'm stubborn, and I don't give up easy." "Or perhaps you found something else on this planet." Vex 9's red eyes glowed brighter. "Our orbital scans detected unusual energy readings 3 weeks ago. Brief, but consistent with advanced technology." Marcus felt sweat that had nothing to do with the desert heat. "If there was advanced technology on this rock, don't you think I'd be living a lot more comfortably?" Vex 9 studied him for a long moment. Then, without warning, one of the Corvan troops fired a stun blast. Marcus collapsed to the sand, his muscles seizing as electrical energy coursed through his body. "Load him aboard the ship," Vex 9 ordered. "The prisoner will answer questions, under proper interrogation conditions." Marcus drifted in and out of consciousness as they carried him to the ship. Through blurred vision, he saw the desert sliding past. Somewhere beneath those red sands, Lirelai and her people were hiding. He had to protect them. Whatever the Council did to him, he could not let them discover Nethys. He awoke strapped to a metal chair in the ship's interrogation chamber. The room was stark white with no windows. Bright lights blazed down from the ceiling, making his eyes water. Vex 9 sat across from him at a metal table, various mechanical instruments laid out between them. "Now we begin properly," the Inquisitor said. "Truth serum, neural scanners, pain amplifiers. The Council has perfected many techniques for extracting information from uncooperative subjects." "I already told you everything," Marcus said, testing his restraints. "They were solid metal, no chance of breaking free." "You told me a story about survival and determination," Vex 9 replied. "But stories can be lies. Minds do not lie, especially when properly motivated." The Inquisitor activated one of his devices. A thin needle extended from it, dripping with some kind of blue liquid. "This is Corvan Truth Serum. It will make lying impossible while keeping you conscious and alert. Very useful for interrogations." As Vex 9 approached with the needle, Marcus made a desperate decision. "Wait, you want the truth? Fine. But you're not going to like it." The Inquisitor paused. "Explain." "You sent me here to die, but I didn't die. You know why? Because humans don't give up. Ever. We survive things that would kill other species. We adapt. We find ways to turn problems into solutions." Marcus met Vex 9's glowing red sensors directly. "The Council is afraid of humanity because you know we can't be controlled. And this little experiment you're running here proves it." "What experiment?" Vex 9 asked, his artificial voice suddenly sharp with interest. Marcus realized he had said too much. but maybe he could use the Inquisitor's curiosity against him. You really don't know, do you? Your own council is keeping secrets from you. Vex 9 set down the truth serum and activated a recording device. Explain this experiment. Zerion Prime isn't just a prison planet, Marcus said, mixing truth with misdirection. It's a testing ground. The Council has been sending problem species here for centuries, studying how long different races can survive. They're building a database of survival characteristics. For what purpose? To identify which species are too dangerous to allow continued existence, Marcus replied. Think about it. Every race that shows too much independence, too much creativity, too much resistance to council authority gets labeled as chaotic and sent here to die. But what if some of them don't die? What if they adapt and survive? That information is valuable. Vex 9 was silent for a moment, processing this. You suggest the Council is conducting species-level elimination protocols? I suggest you ask them, Marcus said. But I'm betting they didn't tell you about the weapons testing either. What weapons testing? Marcus took a deep breath. This was his biggest gamble. The energy readings your ships detected, they weren't from any technology I found. They were from weapons tests, Council weapons built right into the planet itself. Zerion Prime is one giant experimental facility. Vex 9's red eyes flickered rapidly, a sign of intense data processing. Impossible. I would have been informed of any weapons development programs. Would you? How much do you really know about the Council's deepest projects, Inquisitor? Your enforcement. They tell you what to arrest and what to destroy. But do they tell you why? For the first time since Marcus had known him, Vex 9 seemed uncertain. The mechanical Inquisitor stood and began pacing the small room. His systems, clearly running high-speed analysis routines. Even if what you suggest were true, Vex 9 said finally, it would not explain your survival. Humans are classified as barely intelligent manual laborers. Your species lacks the mental capacity for advanced problem-solving. Does it? Marcus asked. Then how did we develop faster-than-light travel independently? How did we establish colonies? On 30 worlds before the Council even knew we existed? How did I survive 23 days on your death world when your own records say it's impossible? Vex 9 stopped pacing. The Council classifications are based on extensive psychological and physiological testing, conducted by species that were already afraid of us, Marcus interrupted. Tell me, Inquisitor, what was your people's greatest achievement before joining the Council? The Corvin achieved perfect social order through logical integration of organic and mechanical systems. Vex 9 replied automatically. Perfect social order, Marcus repeated. No crime, no war, no chaos. Everything planned and controlled. Then along come humans. Chaotic, unpredictable, refusing to follow the rules. We must have terrified you. Humans are not terrifying, Vex 9 said, but his voice lacked its usual certainty. You are simply disruptive. Same thing, Marcus said with a grin. Disruption terrifies people who value control above everything else. That's why the Council really sent me here, not because I violated some protocol, but because I proved humans can't be controlled. Vex 9 activated his communication system. Inquisitor Vex 9 to Council Command, requesting clarification on Zerion Prime operational parameters. The response came back in the cold, emotionless voice of a Council administrator. Zerion Prime is classified. Inquisitor Vex 9 does not have clearance for operational details. Vex 9 stared at the communication device. I am conducting an interrogation under direct Council authority. I require all relevant information. Negative. Complete your assignment and return to base. No further information available. The Inquisitor slowly turned back to Marcus. It appears you may be correct about Council secrets. I'm correct about a lot of things, Marcus said. Including this. Whatever the Council is really doing on this planet, they're not planning to let you leave with that information. As if summoned by his words, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Emergency lights flashed red as the automated systems announced, "Warning, orbital bombardment detected. All personnel to emergency stations." Through the ship's hull, Marcus could hear the distinctive whine of energy weapons charging, but these weren't coming from space. They were coming from beneath the planet's surface. Vex 9's red sensors widened. Impossible. There are no weapon systems on Xerion Prime. No, Marcus said grimly. There's one weapon system, the planet itself, and I think we just activated it. The ship shook violently as energy beams erupted from hidden installations across the desert. In the distance, Marcus could hear the sound of the other Council ships under attack. "The Council sent you here to confirm my death," Marcus continued as chaos erupted around them. "But they never planned to let you report back. You've seen too much. Just like me." Vex 9 stared at him in what might have been the first genuine emotion the mechanical being had ever experienced. Fear. Outside, the planet's hidden. Part 5. The desert blooms. The ship's hull groaned under the assault of energy beams erupting from the desert floor. Emergency lights bathed the interrogation chamber in hellish red as the vessel shook like a toy in a child's hands. Vex 9's mechanical form sparked as his system struggled to maintain balance. "This is impossible," the Inquisitor repeated, his artificial voice distorted by system overloads. "Xerion Prime has no weapons installations." Marcus tested his restraints as another massive blast rocked the ship. "Your Council friends forgot to mention a few things, didn't they?" Through the ship's communication system, panicked voices crackled from the other Council vessels. "Orbital Command, we are under attack. Weapons fire from planetary surface, requesting immediate—" The transmission cut to static. Vex 9 stumbled to the wall console and activated his sensors. The display showed energy signatures erupting from dozens of locations across the planet. The readings were unlike anything in Corvan databases. "These weapons, they are not mechanical," Vex 9 said, his red sensors flickering rapidly. "They appear to be organic in nature." Marcus felt his heart skip. Organic weapons could only mean one thing. The Scifi were fighting back. But how? Lyrelay had said her people were pacifists who avoided violence. The ship lurched violently to one side, throwing both Marcus and Vex 9 against the wall. Warning alarms screamed as the vessel's main power fluctuated. "Hull breach in Section 7, the ship's computer announced. "Life support compromised. Estimated time to total system failure, 12 minutes. Vex 9 struggled back to the console. "Inquisitor Vex 9 to Orbital Command, requesting immediate evacuation." The response was a burst of static, then silence. "Your friends seem to have left you behind," Marcus observed. Vex 9 turned to stare at him. "The Council does not abandon its agents." "The Council abandons anyone who becomes inconvenient," Marcus replied, "including their own Inquisitors who ask too many questions." Another blast shook the ship, this one closer than before. The lights went out completely, leaving only the emergency power strips along the floor. In the red-tinted darkness, Vex 9's glowing sensors looked like burning coals. "If what you say is true," the Inquisitor said slowly, "then we are both dead." "Maybe," Marcus said. "Or maybe we work together and try to survive this." Vex 9 was quiet for a long moment. Marcus could hear the whir of the mechanical being's processors running calculations. Finally, the Inquisitor moved to Marcus's chair and began releasing the restraints. "Your proposal has a 23.7% chance of success," Vex 9 said. "Our current situation has a 0% chance of survival. Logic dictates cooperation." Marcus rubbed his wrists as the metal cuffs fell away. "Welcome to thinking like a human." They made their way through the damaged ship toward the emergency exit. Sparks flew from broken systems and the air was thick with smoke. Through a cracked viewport, Marcus could see the desert landscape lit by continuing energy discharges. "How did you know about the planetary weapons?" Vex 9 asked as they climbed through a collapsed corridor. I didn't, Marcus admitted. I was bluffing. But something on this planet is definitely fighting back against the Council. They reached the emergency hatch just as another energy beam struck the ship's starboard side. The vessel tilted dangerously as its landing struts gave way. We have perhaps 3 minutes before total structural collapse, Vex 9 calculated. Marcus activated the hatch release. Desert air rushed in, carrying the scent of ozone and something else, something like flowers. Then we better move fast. They jumped from the dying ship just as its power core exploded behind them. The blast threw them both across the sand dunes, but they landed relatively unharmed. Marcus rolled to his feet and looked around. The desert was transformed. Where once there had been only endless red sand, now streams of water flowed between patches of green vegetation. The air itself seemed cleaner, more breathable. And approaching across the transformed landscape were figures Marcus recognized. Lyra Lee, he breathed. The Scifi leader rode what looked like a living ship, a creature of biometal and organic curves that flowed across the sand like liquid. Behind her came dozens more Scifi on similar bio-vehicles. Their silver hair streamed behind them like banners of war. Vex 9 raised his weapon, but Marcus put a hand on the Inquisitor's arm. They're here to help. Impossible. Scifi have been extinct for 5 centuries. Another council lie, Marcus said as Lyra Lee's mount came to a stop before them. She leaped down gracefully, her luminous skin glowing with inner fire. When she spoke, her musical voice carried clearly across the desert wind. Marcus Chen, we felt the planet's weapon systems activate. Are you harmed? I'm fine, Marcus replied. But how did you— We have been monitoring council communications. For decades, Lyra Lee explained. When we learned the truth about Xerion Prime, we knew we could not remain hidden. Vex 9 stepped forward, his sensors scanning the Scifi in disbelief. You are the extinct Scifi? But the records clearly state— The records lie, Lyra Lee said simply. As do most things the Council tells its servants. What truth about Xerion Prime? Marcus asked. Lyra Lee's expression grew dark. This world is not just a prison planet. It is a testing ground for a weapon designed to eliminate entire species. The Council has been sending representatives of problematic races here for centuries, studying how the weapon affects different biologies. She gestured toward the transformed landscape around them. The weapon feeds on what the Council calls chaotic life energy, the spark of independence and creativity that some species possess. It was designed to drain that energy and use it, to destroy planets. But something went wrong, Vex 9 observed. Nothing went wrong, Marcus realized. It worked exactly as designed. The weapon has been collecting chaotic energy for centuries, but instead of using it for destruction, we found a way to reverse its function, Lyra Lee finished. The weapon that was meant to destroy creative life has become a tool to enhance and spread it. As if to demonstrate her words, more changes were spreading across the desert. Plants bloomed from sand dunes. Rivers carved new channels through ancient rock. The very air shimmered with released energy. The transformation affects the entire star system, Lyra Lee continued. Every world within 50 light years will feel the awakening. Species that have been suppressed by Council conditioning will remember their true nature. Vex 9's red sensors flickered rapidly. This will destabilize galactic civilization. It will free galactic civilization, Marcus corrected. The Council has been keeping entire species as slaves to their vision of order. Now those species will have a choice. In the distance, ships were approaching, but these were not Council vessels. Marcus recognized the eclectic mix of hull designs and power signatures, ships from dozens of different species, all converging on Xerion Prime. How did they know to come here? He asked. The weapon's reversal sent a signal across subspace, Lyra Lee explained. Every species with the spark of independence felt it. They are coming to see what has happened. Vex 9 watched the approaching fleet with what might have been wonder. 17 different species. Many I do not recognize from current council records. Survivors, Lyrelei said. Races that hid like we did, or found ways to resist council conditioning. They have been waiting for a sign that change was possible. As the ships landed around them, representatives from across the galaxy emerged. Marcus saw beings he recognized from old databases, species listed as extinct or primitive by the Council. They moved with the confidence of people who had rediscovered their own power. The Council will send fleets, Vex 9 warned. They will not allow this rebellion to succeed. Let them come, said a new voice. Marcus turned to see Captain Sarah Rivera approaching with a squad of human Marines. His crew had found him at last. Sarah, how did you— Felt the signal same as everyone else. She grinned. Turns out humanity wasn't the only species the Council was trying to suppress. We've been building an alliance for months. As the sun set over the transformed desert, representatives from dozens of species gathered to plan their next moves. The planet that had been designed as a weapon of oppression had become the birthplace of galactic liberation. Marcus stood with Lyrelei, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. Where once there had been only red sand and black rock, now there were gardens and flowing water and the promise of new life. So what happens now? He asked. Lyrelei smiled and took his hand. Her touch was warm and electric, charged with the same energy that was transforming their world. Now, she said, the desert blooms, and so does the galaxy. Above them, ships from 100 worlds filled the sky, carrying the seeds of a new civilization built on cooperation rather than control. The exile was over. The real journey was just beginning.